Today's lesson is to finish what you start, but to pay attention to setting, race, and historical accuracy. Story 1. July 9th, 2009. We had tried to make a short film called Peasant Revolt in China over the summer, but we just couldn't find the time, so it ended up a canceled creation. We had rolled in dirt before scenes, we had cut up old clothes, and we really took it more seriously than we did some of our other projects, so it's interesting that it was one that never came together. Part of it was probably the set design and the costumes we had to create before each scene. It was just too much work. Make sure you set your stories in places and time periods that you have access to, or at least have the budget to set dress for. It was a little embarrassing because we'd invited a few friends from school to be in a scene that day, but the film never released, and I now had to admit to all of them that we'd been unable to finish it. Now, we didn't get in trouble for not finishing this because we were minors. We didn't have any contracts with producers or investors and didn't have any career reputation to uphold yet. However, if a film with a significant budget is canceled partway through production, it can be career ruining. And I'll paint you a picture as to why that is. Let's say investors put down $1 million for a production, and they're obviously hoping to make the money back plus more, but if the film took an extra maybe $20,000 to finish, that might have come from the producer as a personal loan. Maybe someone took out a reverse mortgage on their home. How are you going to pay them back if that film never even comes out? Not many people are going to trust someone with their money after they've already let one film collapse, so it puts anyone in a tough position career-wise if they're in a high-level position on a film that never sees the light of day. So let me reiterate. If you started a project and told people you were starting a project, you'd better see this one through if you want anyone to believe in your next project. Fun fact 1. We also shot part of this film in what's now Fort Ord National Monument. It was one of our favorite places to shoot because it could be any time period we wanted it to be. We didn't have to find a Japanese castle from the Edo period. We just had to have the scene take place in a forest near the castle without showing the castle. Fun fact 2. Similar to how it's done in theater, we had actors play characters that were different ages, races, and genders when we were in early high school, using our friends to play whatever parts we needed. But only one actor in Peasant Revolt in China was actually Chinese, so maybe it was for the best that it never came out. My views towards who can play what probably changed around my junior year of high school as I became aware that film is held to very different standards than theater in regard to who can play what roles. Let me give you an example. Sir Laurence Olivier, who Britannica calls the greatest English-speaking actor of the 20th century, spent months dropping his voice an octave or so in order to play a black man in Shakespeare's Othello, which he played in blackface. As a word of the wise, don't apply the standards for acting and casting in plays to acting and casting in filmmaking. That will not go well. Story 2, Fall 2010. My high school theater did a performance of the play Once on This Island that didn't have any Caribbean people in it at all, even though it's supposed to be about people from the French Antilles. It was a story that the theater director wanted to tell, and so she told it using the people who auditioned. That's very different from how film is. A few years later, I was speaking to an actress while we were waiting for an audition, and it came up that I'd been in Once on This Island. She asked what part I played in it, and she laughed out loud when I said I'd been cast as Daniel Bozome, a part described as living in the Caribbean for generations but being descended from the French. Do I look like my family has been living in the Caribbean for 3 generations or more? So, that conversation was a little awkward. But I went to a high school of less than 200 people, so options were very limited when it came to casting. Because of that, I hadn't realized that some schools and even community theaters had been stricter about what races of people could play what roles on stage. Obviously, as soon as I got to LA, everyone was very strict about that, in film at least, but that was a new concept to me. Now, I didn't get in trouble for that role because I was a minor cast in a high school theater production, and I was just doing what my theater director told me to do. However, if I had been an adult cast in a major motion picture, that same role could have come with some online backlash. In strokes of broad generalization, there are things that actors can get away with changing, and then things that will upset people if they try to change. Let me walk you through what some of these are. 1. Dye your hair, not your skin. I can dye my hair and my beard any color I want, but I can't dye my skin without it crossing a line. 2. Act any age you can. I can play any age they can make me look like, so maybe 20 to 60. 3. Use accents for people you look like, but not for people you don't. For example, I could probably use a British, Scottish, Spanish, or Italian accent for a role without any issues, but using a Vietnamese, Nigerian, or Ukrainian accent probably wouldn't be received the same way. 4. Play any average height. But I wouldn't portray anyone with dwarfism or gigantism, for example, because there are people with those conditions who can portray them much better than I could. 5. Play any weight you can put on. Wouldn't it be a little weird for me to wear a fat suit to play a man struggling with his weight when there are actual obese actors who understand how to portray those struggles significantly better or more accurately than I could? And that's the key to this. Play any role that doesn't take away a part from someone who could provide better authenticity. For example, if I was to play the role of a Korean double amputee, I'm sure any actor who's actually a Korean double amputee would get understandably very upset. This can get a little tricky in situations where it becomes difficult or dangerous for someone to portray a role accurately, but I'll get more into health issues and trauma around entertainment in Season 3. Granted, I'm sure what I just said will upset a few people, but obviously there are exceptions. If you've been playing a character that gains weight for the story, fat suits are often a healthier alternative to having to legitimately gain the weight, such as Chris Hemsworth in Avengers Endgame. If you tanned for months to change your skin tone, but you didn't dye your skin, that's also usually considered fine, because it's within the natural scope of your actual skin tones. Another option I've seen is an actor portraying someone with a disease because they have a family member who has that disease, and therefore they understand it more intimately, especially if it's a disease that would prevent someone from being able to portray the role themselves. To recap, these are guidelines to follow to prevent angering different subsets of people, not hard or fast rules of any kind. Each casting situation is unique, and as more and more multiracial actors find work in Hollywood, the more difficult it becomes to draw certain distinctions. Notice I haven't put any rules about sexuality or gender in here, because those distinctions are even more difficult to draw. Fun fact 3, Fall 2019. Speaking a second language is one easy way to expand your potential roles. For example, let's say you're a Tanzanian man auditioning for a Chinese film, or an Irish woman auditioning for a Spanish film. Not much of a chance, right? However, if you're fluent in Mandarin or Spanish, then there could be a character who's lived in that country, even if they weren't born there. They could be a tourist, or a foreigner teaching English in that country. It's one of the only ways I've seen actors prevent themselves from being pigeonholed into playing only who they look like and to get more roles in foreign films. For example, I got a role in a feature film as a tourist from Spain who'd been kidnapped because I was able to speak Spanish for the role. Do I have Spanish-speaking family? Yes. Are they from Spain? No. But it was the language that mattered. I had a high school Spanish teacher who was from Barcelona, and I knew what that accent sounded like. It wasn't Barcelona, it was Barcelona. And so I was able to replicate it well enough to make the director happy. Anyway, that's my lesson story and fun facts for the day. I tried to include info for friends, family, filmmakers, history buffs, casting directors, actors, theatergoers, linguophiles, and more. So hopefully you learned something along the way, and I'll see you all next week for the Season 1 finale.